Hi guys, here's your lesson on 13.5, the law of cosines. The law of cosines is another method to solve triangles that are not right triangles. For the law of cosines, you're going to use it when you do not have an angle and its corresponding side, because otherwise you could just use the law of sines. So cosines, you have two scenarios. You're going to have side angle side, or you're going to have all three sides of your triangle. Here are the formulas for the law of cosines. As you can see, they're all very, very similar to each other. The only difference is the order of your A, B, and C. I just like to remember that if I start with side A, I'm going to end with cosine of A. If I start with side B, I'm going to end with cosine of B. If I start with side C, I'm going to end with cosine of C. The order of these variables do not matter just because you're adding and multiplying them. So for law of cosines, it has to go in a particular order, especially if we're going to incorporate the law of sines, which we are. So step number one is to find the missing side. Using the law of cosines. Step number two is to find the smallest angle using law of sines because I happen to think that that's easiest. And step number three is to find the last angle. Okay, so over here we do not have an angle in its corresponding side because otherwise we could use law of sines. So I'm going to go ahead and start to solve for side C. So I have C squared equals my other two sides squared, so 15 squared plus 28 squared minus 2 times my other two sides, and then cosine of my angle, which in this case is 82 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and take this entire thing and plug it into my calculator. That gives me 892.09. I can go ahead and take the square root. And that gives me, I'm going to go ahead and round the sides to the nearest tenth. So that's going to be 29.9. All right, so now I know that this side is 29.9 units. I got an extra decimal in there. There we go. All right, from here we're going to go ahead and go on to step two, and we're going to find the smallest side using the law of sines. So our smallest side is opposite the smallest, our smallest side is opposite the smallest angle. So my smallest side is the 15, which means my smallest angle is going to be angle B. So I'm going to use the law of sines. So I have sine of B over 15 equals, and now we have the angle and its corresponding side to set up law of sines. So I have sine of 82 over 29.9. I can go ahead and cross multiply. I have sine of B equals 15 sine of 82 degrees over 29.9. That gives me sine of B equals 0.4968, and then I'm going to take the inverse sine, and I get about 30 degrees for angle B. Now the reason why we have to jump to the smallest angle is because we are going to use the law of sines. If you want to solve for the angle measurements using the law of cosines, it does not matter the order that you go in. But since I'm using the law of sines, I have to go in this particular order. So I know that this angle measurement is 30 degrees, so all I'm missing is angle A. Well, the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees, so I can take 180 minus the 82 minus 30 degrees, and angle A ends up being 68 degrees. And now this triangle is solved. You have all three sides, and we now have all three angles. When I'm solving the triangle with all three sides, again, law of cosines has to go in a particular order, so we do have steps for this one as well. Step number 1 is to find the largest angle first. Using the law of cosines. Step number 2 is going to be to find the smallest angle, once again, using law of sines. And then finally, our third step is going to be to find the last angle. Since we'll know these two, we can find the last one pretty easily. So step number 1, find the largest angle using the law of cosines. Largest angle is opposite the largest side. So there's my largest side. So that means I am finding angle A. Since I'm solving for angle A, I'm going to start off the law of cosines with the 22. So it's going to be 22 squared equals my other two sides squared, so 16 squared plus 20 squared, minus 2 times the other two sides, and then cosine of angle A. 22 squared is 484. These two I can go ahead and combine, and those I can go ahead and multiply. So 16 squared plus 20 squared is 656 minus 640 cosine of angle A. Now please be careful, do not combine these two numbers because the 640 is attached to the cosine of A. Now we actually want to isolate the cosine of A, so I'm going to go ahead and start shifting things around. So I'm subtracting 656 from both sides, and that gives me negative 172 equals negative 640 cosine of A. Divide both sides by negative 640. And that gives me 0.2688 equals cosine of A. I'm going to do the inverse cosine of that, and that gives me about 74 degrees. And then to step 2, find the smallest angle. Well, my smallest angle is opposite the smallest side, so I'm going to go ahead and solve for angle C using the law of sines. I like using the law of sines better than the law of cosines when I get the chance, just because law of cosines takes a lot more work and space. But I have sine of C over 16 equals sine of 74 over side C, which is 22. Can cross multiply. And take the inverse. So 16 sine of 74 divided by 22 gives me 0.6991. I can do the inverse sine, and that gives me 44 degrees. So I know that this is 74. I now know that this is 44, so I can go ahead and find angle B by taking 180 minus 44 minus 74. And that gives me 62 degrees. So I've solved the triangle. I have all three sides and all three angles. All right, so that's it for 13.5 Law of Cosines.